Now let's start. Henry McCollum lived in New Jersey but had to come to rural North California to spend time with his mother and his brother Leon Brown. It was the autumn of 1983. Henry was 19 and Leon was just 15. Henry had been in Robeson County for a few weeks when the body of 11-year-old Sabrina Bowie, I hope I'm saying it correctly, was discovered in a soybean field just a short distance away from his mother's home. The little girl had been R-worded and suffocated. The police in the tiny town of Red Springs began interviewing local residents, searching for suspects. Henry McCollum's school photo, we'll attach it there. One police officer came across a high school student who repeated a rumor she'd heard at school. Henry McCollum, a teen from out of town, seemed suspicious and might have been involved in the crime. Henry had intellectual disabilities, which may have been why other teens felt he behaved strangely. When officers showed up at his mother's house, Henry went to the police station voluntarily. In the evening, a group of law enforcement officers kept him in an interrogation room until late in the night, demanding that Henry tell them about the crime, promising him that if he gave them the facts about the crime, he would be allowed to go home. You can imagine such a condition for an intellectually disabled child. They probably might just lie to get out of it so that they can go home, because home is often at the place that feels safe for them. After 4.5 hours of questioning, Henry broke. He told the officers a story filled with details they'd given him about a R-word and a execution of a person he had nothing to do with. The officers wrote up a grisly confession, and Henry, who could barely comprehend the written document, signed it. And then he asked, "Can I go home now?" Can you see how, like, a normal person will know that after such an interrogation, you're not going home, you're going to prison. So it just shows that he was not mentally capable to even undergo this interrogation without some psychological preparation or some support. He had no idea that we wouldn't go home again for more than 3 decades. How sad. As Henry invented the details of the R-word crime, he added other characters to the scene to share responsibility for the awful crime. He said that his brother Leon had been with him along with 2 other friends. By coincidence, Leon and his mother were already at the police station. They'd come to wait for Henry. Police pulled Leon into another interrogation room and extracted a confession from him too. Leon, who was more profoundly disabled than Henry, could not even read the document he signed just a half hour after Henry's confession. It conflicted in insignificant ways with Henry's account, and both confessions pointed to 2 other boys who police later determined could not possibly have been present. Yet those 2 confessions, coerced, conflicting, and patently false, became the evidence that prosecutors would use to send the 2 innocent, poor, black, disabled teenagers to a death row. Henry and Leon quickly retracted their confessions, but it was too late. In 1984, a jury sentenced both of them to death. In 1991, they won a new trial, and Leon was resentenced to life in prison. However, Henry was again sentenced to death. His confession was once again the key piece of evidence. During his years on death row, Henry's case became notorious. U.S. Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia pointed to the brutality of Henry's crime as a reason to support capital punishment. During North Carolina legislative elections, in 2010, Henry's face showed up on political flyers as an example of a brutal rapist and a child executioner who deserved to be executed. Henry continued to proclaim his innocence to anyone who would listen. Finally, Leon wrote to new NC, Innocence Commission, a state agency that agreed to investigate the case. What they uncovered was shocking. The investigators knew at the time that fingerprints found at the scene did not match Henry or Leon, but they never compared the fingerprints to other possible suspects. And just a few weeks after Sabrina Bowie's YouTube has really made us have to choose our words. Sabrina Bowie's end of life. Another young woman was R-worded and executed in Red Springs. Joanne Brockman, 18 years old, had also been R-worded, asphyxiated, and left in a field. The culprit was a man named Roscoe Artis, who had a long record of serious assaults against women. Artis lived next to the field where Sabrina's body was found, yet he had never been investigated as a suspect in her death. The Innocence Commission staff unearthed items that had been left in Sabrina's body: clothing, beer, cans, cigarette butts, and conducted modern DNA testing. They found the DNA belonging to Henry and Leon. They found no DNA belonging to Henry and Leon, but on one cigarette butt, they found a perfect match with Roscoe Artis. Based on the Commission's overwhelming evidence of innocence, the brothers were released from prison in 2014. In 2015, then Governor Pat McCrory granted the brothers a full pardon of innocence. Why do they need to be granted a pardon? They need to be... this just, okay, fine. Maybe that's the way they call it, but I found it weird. Also that year, U.S. Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer cited their case as a reason to outlaw the death penalty. But then, with that done, I think we also need to consider the consequences of the people who had handled the case. They should face some consequences. And while I was researching, I didn't find any information of whether they received compensation, but I believe in such cases they usually do, and I hope that they did get their compensation. It's really sad that intellectually disabled boys were separated from their families in this way, and they had to really suffer being seen as bad people. And sometimes even if you're exonerated, some people died knowing you were guilty, and your tax is paying these people who are supposed to be investigating cases. You pay them and they still don't do their work properly and they end up implicating you. It's really sad, and I wouldn't want to imagine how they lived past that part of their lives. I can only hope that they healed and moved on. Thank you for watching and listening. Have a great day.